Hello friends, welcome to the channel Horror Podcast English. Today's story is very terrible, so listen it till the end. If you are new in the channel, please subscribe and share with your friends. Now enjoy the story.
The rain poured down in relentless sheets, turning the winding road to Blackwood Manor into a river of mud. The dark clouds hung low, almost touching the dense forest that surrounded the old mansion. Emily Parker gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white as she navigated the treacherous path. She had inherited the manor from a distant relative she had never met, and although she had heard the rumors about the place, she had dismissed them as nothing more than local folklore. When she finally put up to the grand, yet decaying estate, a shiver ran down her spine. The manor stood tall and imposing, its once glorious facade now marred by time and neglect. The windows were dark, and the heavy wooden doors loomed before her like the gaping maw of a beast. With a deep breath, Emily stepped out of her car and made her way to the entrance. The key felt cold in her hand as she turned it in the lock, and the door creaked open with a groan that echoed through the empty halls. Air inside was musty and stale, thick with the scent of damp wood and forgotten memories. The interior of the manor was even more oppressive than the exterior. The high ceilings and dark wood paneling seemed to close in around her as she walked through the silent halls. Dust covered every surface, and cobwebs hung like curtains in the corners of the rooms. The furniture was covered in white sheets, ghostly figures that added to the eerie atmosphere. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. But whenever she turned around, there was nothing there, only the emptiness of the manor and the sound of her own footsteps echoing back at her. That night, as the storm raged outside, Emily settled into one of the old bedrooms. The bed creaked under her weight, and the cold seeped through the thin blankets, making it impossible to get comfortable. She lay there, staring up at the cracked ceiling, listening to the wind howl through the trees outside. Just as she was about to drift off to sleep, she heard a faint whispering sound, so soft that she thought she might have imagined it. She sat up in bed, straining to hear over the noise of the storm, but the whispering had stopped. Dismissing it as the wind, Emily lay back down, pulling the covers up to her chin. But as soon as she closed her eyes, the whispering returned, louder this time and unmistakably real. It seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, a chorus of voices murmuring in a language she couldn't understand. Heart pounding, Emily got out of bed and lit the old oil lamp on the bedside table. The flickering light cast long shadows across the room, but there was no one. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, and she could almost make out words, though they made no sense to her. Terrified, Emily fled the room and ran down the hall, the whispers following her, growing louder with each step. She stumbled into the grand foyer, her breath coming in short gasps, and the whispers suddenly stopped, leaving her in a deafening silence. The next morning, Emily was determined to find the source of the whispers. She searched the manor from top to bottom, looking for anything that could explain the voices she had heard. The old house was filled with hidden passages and secret rooms, and it wasn't long before she stumbled upon a door concealed behind a tapestry in the library. The door led down a narrow, spiraling staircase, deep into the bowels of the manor. As she descended, the air grew colder, and the darkness seemed to close in around her. The whispering returned, faint at first, but growing louder as she went deeper into the earth. At the bottom of the stairs, Emily found herself in a small stone chamber. In the center of the room stood an ancient wooden chest, bound with iron and covered in strange symbols. The whispers were almost deafening now, urging her to open the chest to see what lay inside. With trembling hands, Emily reached out and lifted the heavy lid. Inside, she found a collection of old yellowed papers covered in writing that she couldn't understand. But there was something else, something that made her blood run cold. A small, ornate mirror, its surface dark and tarnished, lay at the bottom of the chest. As she picked it up, the whispers stopped abruptly, leaving her in a terrifying silence. The mirror felt wrong in her hands, its weight too heavy, its presence too malevolent. She raised the mirror to her face, and her reflection stared back at her. But it wasn't her. The figure in the mirror had her face, but its eyes were black voids, and its mouth twisted into a cruel smile. Emily dropped the mirror with a cry, and it shattered on the stone floor. The whispering returned, louder than ever, and the walls of the chamber began to close in around her. She fled up the stairs, the voices chasing her, urging her to come back to finish what she had started. In the days that followed, Emily tried to leave Blackwood Manor, but every time she approached the front door, something stopped her. It was as if the house itself had a hold on her, refusing to let her go. The whispering followed her everywhere, growing louder and more insistent, driving her to the brink of madness. She discovered that the papers she had found in the chest were part of an ancient ritual, one that had been performed by her ancestor to bind a malevolent spirit to the manor. The ritual had been incomplete, and the spirit had been trapped in the mirror, waiting for someone to release it. Now, the spirit was free, and it wanted revenge. Emily realized that the only way to break the curse was to complete the ritual and banish the spirit once and for all. But the more she read, the more she understood the terrible price she would have to pay. On the night of the new moon, Emily prepared for the ritual. She gathered the items she needed: a silver knife, a bowl of salt, and a black candle, and made her way back to the chamber beneath the manor. The whispers were deafening now, screaming in her ears as she descended the stairs. When she reached the chamber, she found the spirit waiting for her. It had taken on a physical form, a twisted, shadowy figure with eyes like black holes and a mouth that stretched impossibly wide. With trembling hands, Emily lit the black candle and began the ritual. The spirit laughed, the sound that chilled her to the bone, but she pressed on, reciting the ancient words she had memorized. As she spoke, the spirit lunged at her, but the sword formed a barrier that it couldn't cross. The chamber shook, the walls cracking as the spirit thrashed against its prison. But Emily kept going, her voice growing louder as she neared the end of the ritual. Finally, with a scream, the spirit was sucked back into the shattered mirror, its form twisting and writhing as it was pulled into the glass. The mirror reformed, pulled once more, and the chamber fell silent. Emily collapsed to the floor, exhausted and trembling. The curse was broken, but she knew she could never leave Blackwood Manor. The house had taken too much from her, and now it was the only place she could call home. Years passed, and the story of Emily Parker and Blackwood Manor became another local legend. Some say that she went mad, driven to insanity by the horrors she had witnessed. Others say she still lives in the manor, the new keep of its dark secrets. But those who dare to approach the old house on stormy nights claim they can still hear the whispers, faint but unmistakable, echoing through the empty halls. And if you listen closely, they say you might hear a woman's voice among them, warning you to leave before it's too late. For the curse of Blackwood Manor is never truly broken. It only waits for the next soul to cling.